Okay, welcome back to the Success Blueprint podcast. It is great to have everyone back again as we jump into part 2 of this section of this segment. Last time we were talking about Garrett's favorite subject, process, not to be, not to overshadow outcome, but he was talking about the power of that process. And we're at the beginning of the year, and now is the time for everyone to establish that process and be super intentional about what they're doing to get where they want to be.
Can I just say one thing too? Like what are we talking about there? Let me give you a little story. So we used to own bakeries. We used to own Mrs. Powell and Cocoa Bean, right? And I could go back and show you sales graphs that by the 17th of January, everybody quit their New Year's resolution. Do you know how I knew that? Because sales after the first of the year were like horrible. And all of a sudden that third week in January, I was like, they're back. They're back. So I think that's a question we're trying to answer, right?
Well,
how do we not have a resolution or a goal that all of a sudden we just quit it?
Yeah.
Well, and what's the process that we're establishing at the beginning of the year that we can live with for all 12 months?
How do you create a process that becomes a habit?
Right?
Does it become a standard?
Ooh, that's interesting.
So just like what you become of who you are, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. You can. But the reality is everybody, no one gets to where they are by accident, for good or bad.
Right.
Right? It's either they've intentionally sought to become something, or they've intentionally sought to become something, right? We have control over our future. We get to determine our outcome. We do. Absolutely. And if you think about diet, exercise, or anything like that, if I go on a cruise, right, and I just eat terrible for the week, when I get on the scale at the end of the week, I'm not surprised, right? I'm not sitting there going, I can't believe this. This is unbelievable. Yeah. How did I possibly gain weight? Well, you fed yourself a certain way for a week. The outcome's going to be real.
When you talk about self-development, a friend of ours, Matt Chick, was talking about that he's a huge proponent, huge fan of self-development. And he says, look, self-development goes both ways. Self-development, you can go and get better. Or self-development, like what you're saying, you can binge eat or you can do these different things and you can get worse. And so I think that that's also the one thing that we have to decide is like, what kind of development are we going to get better every single day? And, are we going to have a cheat day? Are we going to have leniency? You know what I mean? But by all means, don't just try to stay there and then slide backwards.
Well, but as we start the beginning of the year, you think to yourself, it's not just the food you're taking, it's the words you're listening to, it's the shows you're watching, it's everything that you're doing in what you're consuming.
Yeah. So for me, there's 2 laws in the universe that govern this kind of thing we're talking about. The first one is the law of association.
Yep.
So like when we start to decide we want to be a thing, because to me, it's not about doing the thing, it's about being the thing. So when I decide I want to lose weight, why? What do I want to become through that process? It can't just be about losing weight, because weight will come, weight will go. But what do I want to become? If I want to make more money, why do I want to make more money?
Right.
And then once we understand that and get real with that, we have to start to associate ourselves with other people who believe the same thing, because we are going to be the average of the 5 people we hang around the most. To your point, that's either going to bring us up or bring us down.
Whether or not, it's not like a light switch, right?
No.
Like sometimes it's a gradual thing that we don't realize.
Yeah, like I want to quit drinking, but I hang out in bars. Doesn't work. It
Right.
does. It will not work. It will not work. If I want to quit drinking and all my friends are hanging out in a bar, I need to find new friends. That's the first thing I need to do. Right?
Yep.
Because at some point with alcoholism as a real thing, as an addiction, there is no amount of willpower that will push me through that if I find myself in the wrong places.
Right.
Yeah.
So first of all, I have to use the law of association in my favor. And then the other one is the law of accountability. The law of association works to that a little bit, but I can use the law of accountability without people that are in the same process of the law of association, meaning that they'll hold me accountable for what it is. So they're the ones that will show up and ask the question. They're the ones that will say, are you really going to eat that?
Yeah, but don't those go hand in hand?
They do.
Like your law of association, law of accountability, because like the people that are super driven and people that are ambitious and have goals and live in life very intentional, they make you feel guilty if you're not living that way. So you'll go migrate to people that won't hold you accountable,
Yes.
right?
True.
But they can be different too, right? So like, for example, my law of association might be different in my professional life, but my law of accountability may be at home, right? So like, for example, my law of association in the professional life will be to put myself around people that do certain things in their profession so I can step up to their standard. But at home, because my wife checks the credit card statement, she's going to help me spend my money better, even though she might not be part of that association.
Right.
Right. So, but yeah, a lot of times they will work together, but sometimes they can be separate as well.
Well, and that's why when you talk about the Greider-Peterson team, I think that's one of the greatest assets you have is you have both of those things playing in, strong with you because you've got great associations and you have accountability. And that's why your agents flourish.
And I was actually thinking about that when Garrett was when he was saying that. We do have a great association from the success team that we have as far as our admins goes and the agents on our team. We do want each other to win. We don't have a competitive. We're very competitive, but it's not like we try to take meat out of each other, right?
Right.
We try to help each other grow. And we're not in competition with each other. We're in competition with each other to help each other get better.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the accountability, we definitely have conversations, things like that. But there is an accountability of this similar what you have with your wife, right? Like you show up to work and you do a lot of things because the person at home that's taking care of your house and your kids, that they're at home taking care of things. So you got to get out there and you got to take care of things.
Right.
And it's a similar aspect here because we show up because if I don't show up and Jason shows up, well, then Jason's doing my work too. If Jason and I both don't show up, we know the agents are trying to, carry the weight. And so there's that accountability as far as, obviously the coaching aspect of it. But that is what's awesome is it's like a very free, non-judgmental, out of love situation of those two things.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then we have to, so the real success happens too when there's a system of accountability, but then it transitions to self-accountability, right? Mm. And one thing that always helps me with this is we judge others by their results. We judge ourselves by our intentions. And we have to mentally have to flip that on its head and say, I no longer get to judge myself by my intentions. So what do we have to do? We have to figure out how we're going to track it. What does it mean? What does success look like? Yeah. Because too often, and to be honest with you, then we have to figure out leading indicators. And this gets process geeking, that we're talking about. But at the end of the day, we can't say, I want to lose weight. That's not effective. At the end of the day, I have to know how much weight I want to lose or gain or what I want my body to look like and what the physical makeup is.
Or your health or if there's a reason that way. Or.
Yes, but then I have to back that up to what does that mean? What input and output does that mean each day? Because I can control that and that will lead to success. Or what measures of heart rate or blood pressure or whatever it is that we're trying to track. Now that gets real. And now that evolves back into a leading indicator, which now I can impact every day. And once I can impact the leading indicator, then I know that on the day that I put myself on the scale, the result's going to happen. Do you know what's interesting is like when we talk about health, people realize during their journey that they say they want to lose weight, but that's not really what they want. They want to be healthy.
Mm. Yeah.
But that's how we associate it.
You want to feel better.
You want to feel better, right? Yeah. And so we have to understand, what does that mean? What are the leading indicators? And then we just go on this process. But what gets tracked and measured gets improved, right?
So real quickly though, before, and I know most people listening have perhaps heard leading and lagging indicators, but Garrett, unpack that a little bit just so that everyone's clear.
Yeah, so like let's break it down to business. That's kind of the easiest one. Like most of us want to manage our business off the financials. What does our success look like? Interestingly enough, a lot of small businesses I work with are actually not even doing that. They're saying at the end of the year, how much money do I have in the bank?
What do we have left over?
Yeah, it's like,
Is there enough left over?
You don't know how many people I ask, like, has it been a good year? I don't know. I'll tell you at the end of the year.
Is Santa Claus coming or not?
No. So let's say we're a little more sophisticated. So we actually have monthly financials. A lot of us think that's how we should manage our business. Well, the problem is that that's a lagging indicator.
Right.
Because once we get that result, we can't impact it.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do I take that lagging indicator and put it into a leading metric that I can manage in real time to predict the outcome and the result? So what we put into our body and the amount of effort we put out of our body, that is leading indicators to what it'll say when we stand on the scale or things like that.
And Garrett, I just wanted to say that again because, even when we know, and we've studied leading and lagging indicators for many, many years, but I still have to be reminded about it because I gravitate sometimes towards those lagging indicators, even though I know. I'll get up and I'll teach leading and lagging indicators. And then personally, I'll be like, why? And you just gravitate to looking to those lagging indicators when in the reality is that focus on leading indicators is just so important.
Yeah, I think we ended last time talking about the sales cycle or something like that. But I just helped a group with the sales process, helping their sales team. And what we realized as we went through it is they were saying, okay, what's sales job? Sales job is to grow sales, add revenue to the business. Okay. And they set quarterly goals. Okay. And I'm like, now what? They're like, well, we'll tell you at the end of the quarter. I'm like, no, you won't. So I said, what is your sales cycle? Like from talking to somebody, how long does it take to close that deal? They're like average 45 days. Okay.
Wait, they had that number though?
No, they were guessing.
Yeah,
they were
I was
guessing.
like, that's impressive.
So then I said, okay, what's your conversion rate? And they're like, what do you mean conversion rate? I'm like, well, how many people do you have to talk to close a sale? And they were guessing again, and they said 1 out of every 10.
No,
and I'm like,
they did not know those numbers, Garrett. No one knows those numbers.
But they guessed, and all I wanted to do was guess because what we did is we put it all up on the whiteboard, and we just said, okay, it takes 45 days. Here's my conversion rate. Yeah. And by the way, what is a conversion rate? A conversion rate, if it's a cold call, this is my conversion rate. If it's a referral, this is my conversion rate. Okay, so how many do you need? And by the way, $100,000 in sales, what does that mean? Oh, it means 5 sales like this and 10 sales like that. Okay, great. And how do those lead? And all of a sudden, by the time we were done, we had a 6-month plan.
Yep.
I said, I'm sorry, we've already missed the first quarter, but Q2, if you do this, you'll get that result. What? Do what? What does it say? 7 cold calls every day.
Right.
Yeah.
2 referrals every day. So show up and do it.
We have something like that as well. And it tracks it, and it's if you put it in, I mean, you can get it dialed into how many calls, how many appointments, how many conversions, and all of that. And the funny thing when you say that about the guessing is I'll talk to agents, that join our team, and they're like, "Man," I'm like, "Well, what's your conversion?" Right? And they're like, "Man, if you get somebody in front of me."
Don't get me started on that.
I can close it. And Jason and I laugh because we're always like everybody says that and they forget all of the crap that they didn't close or the people who they didn't because they don't keep track of those, like, oh, that one doesn't count. That was, and but when you say that, it's important to keep track of some of those numbers pretty tightly, just so that you can look back and see, am I getting better, or what is my conversion rate? Because we do forget about those. We have that, that we forget.
Well, and sometimes getting more sales, it's much easier if you're actually tracking those things and tracking your conversion ratios. Sometimes it's way easier just to tweak something to increase that conversion ratio than to make 10 more calls a day. And so you can look at those things and you can tweak just a few things to increase that ratio a little bit. You're going to be way better off than just making the additional calls.
Absolutely. Well, and the only thing that stirs my emotions more than that conversation that we were just having was when they say, I close 95% of the people I want to work with. Right. And I'm like, wait
a second.
What do you mean? Right. They'll say like, oh, I'll close almost everyone that I want to work with. Right. That means if someone tells you, no, I didn't want to work with them.
Yeah.
Right. And we do all these things and say all these things because we don't have the metrics in place. And so we're trying to manipulate the numbers to make us feel good.
And in the end, when you compare all those people that you described to the people who are succeeding, right? They all have the same hours in the day. They all have the same, tools roughly. And it's because the ones that make excuses for themselves and the ones who aren't making excuses for themselves and tracking and are, living in the reality of what it takes to track your progress in that process. It's kind of funny, the difference of them, because they want to figure out how they can get over there, but they're living in this world of no mistakes and things like that.
Yeah. And having an exceptionally high opinion of themselves, right? Yeah. So years ago, I coached a speaker team who'd go and sell products from stages across America. And I'd have one guy come off stage and he'd be like, dude, I crushed that. And I'm like, and no one bought anything. And he's like, I know, they're just not ready for me. I'm just like, wait.
They're just not ready.
What are you talking about? Like, he's like, they're just not, that's on them. Yeah. That's not on me.
Right.
I'm like, well, it's a little on you, and so like, even when you have the metrics in place, you still have to have people that are coachable and want to be better, because I had the metrics in place for this particular speaker and I'm like, these aren't good. And he's like, I know, you got to give me better audiences. You know what I mean? I'm like, well,
got to get the better leads, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's always that.
But we live in a confusing world. So we live in a world of social media that confuses us as to what's important and what's not.
Oh, for sure.
It also confuses us as to what the reality is and what it's not, because we see it and we think it's reality, but it's really not. And to Chad's point, somebody who walks off stage and says I crushes it without selling anything is clearly focused on the wrong thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about whatever their motivation is, whether it's being told great presentation.
Yeah.
Or whether it's being told, man, I saw you on stage, you're my idol, or whatever it is, or if it's really making the sale.
Right.
Because somebody who
Great
really
point.
understands the goal here is to do this would not come off stage thinking they crushed it.
True.
Right.
But a lot of the times, too many of us, like, and I fit in this category too, like, I want to make more money. Why? Because I want what I see everybody else has.
True.
That's not me. I want to lose weight. Why? Because of what everybody else thinks I should look like. No, there has to be this exploration process where we understand what we want and why we're motivated to do it.
Unless you find that out, you're not going to have the motivation to do it every day. You just won't.
And then you'll get confused by the indicators. Yeah, you won't have results. True. You'll get frustrated and you'll quit. So January 17th comes along and I'm back in there eating a donut. Right?
That's right.
That's why it happens. That's why.
So how if somebody isn't on a team or somebody isn't in a business, right? So you got a lone wolf who's trying to figure that out and they don't have the accountability, and maybe they don't have whatever you would call it, that they just can't see it for themselves, right? How could somebody like that? I mean, do you join a group? Do you hang out with a different 5 people? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Like, sometimes we get into these things and it's easy for Jason and I because we go to work together, right? And we're honest with each other. And so we can call each other out, or we can help with, with agents and different things. So you can't really hide from that. But if you're on your own, then where do you start knowing where some of your weaknesses are?
Well, it goes back to that self-awareness piece. There are some people that know. I mean, I look at Garrett. Garrett started his business by himself,
right,
and he immediately knew that's not his jam. Working by yourself is not your jam. And so Garrett's like, I've got in. So he told me years ago when he started on his own, he's like, I got to get these things moving because I need to assemble a leadership team. And so he's like, because in order for me to accomplish what I need to accomplish, I've got to have a team of people around me. I don't roll by myself. And you acknowledge that, but you rolled by yourself for a minute, and then you quickly got to a point where you could bring in that leadership team.
Right.
And so it's having that self-awareness, because some people, the challenge is the person that thinks they can do it by themselves and they can't.
Yeah.
I think, so I'll just tell you kind of my journey. Two things were instrumental. First of all, when I was in college, somebody introduced me to the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And interestingly enough, I love my dad to death, but there's this interesting moment in time where I walked into his office and there was a book sitting on the shelf called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's that? Yeah. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, that's the most boring book I've ever tried to read. And they were actually cassettes. They were cassette tapes back in the day. Oh, yeah. And I said, oh, can I have it? He said, yeah, it's just collecting dust. And that book has been so instrumental, right? So here's what I think the process is, Morgan, is I think, first of all, you have a responsibility to go on your own and learn. And there is no excuse today. There are so many books out there. There are audiobooks if you can't read. Yeah. And there is YouTube.
ChatGPT.
Everything. To not learn yourself is just an excuse. That's all it is, point blank. So, but first you have the responsibility to learn yourself. And then after you learn yourself, then the question is, how do I find a mentor? So I'll give you a little hint into business. Like business people invest, right? Yep. And I'm working with one of the high schools in this concept that they have, that we're trying to figure out how to get high school kids interested to create these pitches, right? To get the entrepreneurial spirit alive in the high schools. And in doing that, I told them yesterday, I met with them and I told them, you think people are going to invest in your idea or the ROI that comes with it, but they are going to watch you and they are going to invest in you. The reason I say 100%. That is because everybody who succeeded in this world did so because somebody helped them out. So if you're to the point where you've taken responsibility yourself to learn and you feel like you're progressing and learning and you need the next step, I promise you, if you go ask somebody to help you who's been there, done that, they will help you. I had a mentor. I mentor anybody who does. But what do I look at? I watch their energy and their work that they'll put in. And I tell people all the time, I will match your energy, but I will not go beyond that. And this is the test. This is the test. This is silly. Huge. But when somebody says, I need your help, I'm like, yeah, I'll help you out. They're like, right on. When can we meet? I'm like, 5 a.m. on Friday. And if they say no, that's my answer. But if someone will show up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., whenever it is, I make it the most inconvenient time possible. But if they'll show up then I know. Because you know what? Dozens of people will call and ask for help. And when I ask them to do something hard, they won't show up.
Yeah.
But I'll put the effort in if they put it in too. And I promise you, for those listening, there's a mentor out there that will pour into you when they see absolutely. You're ready to pour.
I find that that's a huge why for many successful people is they want to help others and bring others along. It seems like that's kind of a motivating factor that I see all the time.
Well, but it goes back to what Garrett, because somebody helped them. Nobody got to where they needed to be by themselves. Nobody. Yeah. Somebody mentored them along the way. So there's this, what we call imbalance in the universe. And so you have all these wealthy, successful people that have this imbalance in their life. And so they're like, they feel it. And then when someone comes and says, could I learn from you? It brings their universe back into balance because they're going, I've been wondering how I could help this guy, and this guy back. How could I pay them back? They just told me to pay it forward. You're going to help me pay it forward. Yep. Right. So they want to give back.
That. And that's with anything. Like if we want to get into better shape, we want to be more healthy, and you find somebody who lives that pattern you want, and you really go to them and say, I'm ready to make a change. Will you help me? They're not going to say no.
So 10, 12 years ago. So I was a heavy dude, you know, I was like, I tell Jason this, I was like almost 290. So I'm like, I need to either ramp this up and like get me over 300 bills or I need to like maybe take it the other way. Right.
I've seen pictures.
And so I took it the other way. So that being said, though, my business was struggling. My health was struggling. My spiritual health was struggling. You know, my relationship at home, it was good, but there's no way it can be great when those other things are struggling, right? So I decided, I was like, I'm going to get a coach in every single one of them. I went and asked 3 different people. All of them said, yeah, I'll help you. And so at that point, I committed, and I was all in. So the one guy's like, I work out in my garage. It's come to my house, and I'll, we'll work out. Showed up at his house, 5 a.m. Did it because I'm like, it instilled in my brain, like, you've got to do something different. What you've been doing got you here is like so far off the tracks where you don't want to be. Come back to where, this guy is. This guy was just walking around in our office, and I was like, hey, I don't know who you are. You don't know me, but you're in a lot better in shape than I am, and I want to get into shape. Can work out with you? Absolutely. Showed up. Business coach. Yeah. Business coach went in and said, hey, I've got to get better. I can't afford a coach right now. Can I just come and would you help me? Yeah, absolutely. Come to my office tomorrow. We'll meet 3 times a week. Let's do it. But you have to commit to that person too. And so when they say, hey, here's 3 ideas that I want you to go look at or do, or, here's some assignments, you got to go do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you got to come back and you got to be ready to work. And those, like what you're saying is 100%. Not one person was like, every one of them was so exciid. And then when you start having those wins, then they felt so much more fulfilled.
Absolutely. They feel a part of it, and they feel a part of that. When they tell you to do something, you do it, and they see a little success in you, or you getting excited about it. How much more does that help them?
Right.
And so, I think
but you have to, Jason, go back and report to them. Like,
yes.
you have to give them the feedback.
Very true.
So if you have a mentor, share with you some things that have helped them, and then you go implement them, and you're like, that was awesome. You got to let them know, and you go back, and that deepens that relationship with the mentor. If the mentor has to come to you and say, hey, Morgan, did you end up doing that? Oh, yeah, it was freaking awesome. Oh. Because it makes it feel like there's this lack of...
They're chasing you.
Right, they're chasing you, and it's like, no, I'm never giving you anything, because in their mind, they make it feels like you thought you did that without their help.
Yeah.
And their whole goal
sense.
is to help you.
Yeah.
And so when you don't report back and say, hey, thanks for that, so as you think about what we've talked about in the beginning of the year, and you think about the importance of having that vision, the importance of having the intention and process set up. I mean, are we asking ourselves that question? Do we have a process in place to get me to where? Do I know where I want to get? Do I have a process to support it? And do I have a mentor that's going to help me get there?
Would you say the mentor would help with the process? So if somebody's listening and they're like, I know where I'm at, how do I make a process to get there? What would close us out and tell us what the advice you'd give somebody, to figure out that process?
Well, Garrett, you have a lot of people approach you. If they know where they're going and they're willing to get to your house at 5 a.m., will you help them with the process?
Absolutely.
There's your answer.
Call Garrett.
Yeah.
Because quite likely there's this analysis by paralysis, and I think a mentor is going to understand that.
Right.
A mentor is going to understand that. But what you do have to do, I think what you do owe it to your mentor, is to be very clear about where you want to get, and then release all ego and go where they tell you to.
That was a huge thing.
That's what you have
That's
to
the
do.
biggest thing too.
That's what you have to do.
Well, thank you guys for coming on, and this was a ton of fun. I mean, never enough time. We say that all the time, but not enough time. And so we'll have to do this more.
And where can people find you both?
For me, you can go to speakandgivwhatyouwant.com.
Perfect.
PrevailLegacy.com.
Okay, great.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.